doing a bit of a Google search on your company, and I see you recently became the first insurance company to achieve a level 1 empowerment rating. And of course, that means you meet all requirements of the BBBEE in all 7 sectors that are looked at in that. That must be quite difficult to achieve, because I know looking at other insurance companies, they have battled particularly in areas like procurement. Yeah. How have you managed to get there?
I think that is right. Procurement largely expresses the spend that insurance companies do in respect of claims. Easily 60–70% of every rand that is collected is spent on claims by insurance companies. And I think what is not realized generally is that customers have almost complete discretion in terms of where they want that spend to happen. So, for example, if you have a motor car accident, you might have your favorite garage, or you want to take it to a particular place. And so an insurer has very little discretion in terms of determining what kind of pressure we can put on those suppliers to be compliant in terms of the BBBE Act.
So how do you do it then in the case of procurement? Because you have to assume that there have to be enough black empowered panel beaters out there who are going to be fixing people's cars. Can you penalise customers for not using an empowerment partner?
You can't do that. I mean, at the end of the day, an insurer exists to give service to its customers in the first instance. And so, the selection of the supplier has to be at the discretion of the customer rather than for ourselves. But I think what insurers have done, and also at industry level, certainly has been to encourage the development of black suppliers in the chain. And to that extent, we work very closely with national bodies, representative bodies of panel shops, of tow truck operators and so on. It's not easy, because many of these businesses are family-owned businesses. They've been around for generations, and I think there largely still exists quite a big mythology around what black economic empowerment actually is. And a lot of people just focus on the ownership element of the issue. And so an ordinary business owner is reluctant to do what he considers to be giving away ownership in his business. But in fact, I think the real trick is in the other elements of empowerment, and that is the development of staff, allowing black staff to have a meaningful input into the management and the running of businesses, and then support for other black businesses down the supply chain. So, if you're a panel shop, there's no reason why you can't procure the tires, for example, through an empowered tire supplier. And in that way, you're improving your own score and your own contribution towards empowerment, and that's how you have the impact at the top.
Well, Adam, having worked very hard to get that level 1 empowerment rating, how does that actually benefit you? Does it get you better government contracts, perhaps better work within the top 100 companies that you look at for contracts?
Well, I think there are two aspects, and I want to be very clear about that. The idea of shooting for a level 1 accreditation clearly is one of compliance in terms of the Act. The Act requires it to happen. And so from that perspective, one does look for what benefits come through. But I think that there's a greater purpose towards the attainment of black economic empowerment objectives. Transformation in our country is an extremely important element. The vast majority of black people in this country are still excluded from mainstream economic activities. The vast majority of the poverty-stricken and undertrodden in this country are black by definition. And if we are looking, particularly in times of severe economic decline, as what we're working our way through now, if we are looking for real development, it's an imperative that we bring black people into the mainstream economy, because therein we release the pent-up demand for goods and services and so on, and that's ultimately how we grow the South African economy. So having said that, I mean, and that I think is really the big objective behind why we do what we do, and in fact why the industry, through its voluntary acceptance of the Financial Sector Charter as an example, is committed to the idea of black economic empowerment. For Lion of Africa, I think what we would now want to see is how the attributes of the Act works in our favor. for those companies that with whom we do business, they can claim empowerment points to the extent of 135% of every rand that they spend.
Okay, so it is
with us.
passed on then.
So that is passed on to them. So it enhances their black economic empowerment position. And also in terms of government contracts, certainly we ought, in terms of the empowerment scorecard, we ought to be able to get the opportunity first. But I want to stress, I mean, it is about, it's black economic empowerment level 1 status generally is an enabler to get you to the table to do it. At the end of the day, you still need to do good business. You need to provide a quality.
How about passing on products to those very people you're talking about? And I know a few years ago there was all this talk about shack insurance and making short-term insurance available to all South Africans. Is this something you're also working at? Is it accessible to everybody?
Well, there are two elements to that. I mean, the one side of it is that black people have the same need for insurance products as anybody else.
I'm talking here about poor people, though.
That's the one element of it. The other side of it is how does one deal with the poverty-stricken, LSMs 1 to 4 or 5, and I think the world over what we've seen is that there is the social element of supplying product into those areas almost necessitates a public-private partnership arrangement. And so it is about how do we work better with government, with NGOs to deliver product into those areas. I think most of insurance companies, certainly the industry, is able to provide into that. Government certainly is currently working on a micro-insurance regulatory environment to try and facilitate and make it easier for new entrants to come into the market. So perhaps, I mean, one of the big things we've got to do is to reduce the cost of doing business in those areas and to reduce the barriers that exist to enter those markets. So you're looking at simpler products, cheaper, value-added services and so on, and delivery through social networks which already exist in those communities.